A lovely little song that. Copyright free as well. Testing the audio here. Fuck it, might as well get right into this here. Time is of the essence after all, you know. Aye. Well, hello and welcome into this Thursday's entertainment news. I am Jonathan, often called Cecil Bumfluff by my sister Walsh, but my name is John C. Walsh. It doesn't stand for Cecil, it stands for Christopher. That's neither here nor there. I'm here to discuss entertainment news, and I tell you what, I'm putting entertainment in the show tonight because there's some big fucking news dropped about music, proper music at that. No Taylor Swift shite in here, no BTS, proper music. The Beatles are back. They're back with a bang. They're releasing their final ever song. It has been confirmed next week. We spoke about this on the channel before, me and Stephen, numerous times. It was revealed that Macca and Richard were going to be collabing. And then it was revealed they were going to be collabing on a Beatles song. And then we already knew, as Beatles fans, that it was going to be now and then. But there was a lot of ruminating, a lot of sort of, I don't know, speculation on which song it was they were going to be completing. Then it was revealed there was going to be use of AI. They were going to clean up Lennon's vocals. There was a lot of kerfuffle and hyperbolic nonsense coming out surrounding the use of artificial intelligence in a popular musical song, pop song, the Beatles. We covered that, we covered it at large. We knew it was coming out later in the year. I think this was in the summer we last spoke about this. Probably spoke about it since then, to be fair, in some vein. But it's now been confirmed that it is coming out next week, and in fact it's coming out on the 2nd, I believe, or 3rd of November. I'm not even now entirely sure which day it is it's coming out. I've seen something about a release on the 2nd, a documentary on the 1st, and then a double A-side on the 3rd with Love Me Do, I believe it is. But we'll get into that. We'll get into the actual information here. And what I'm going to do first and foremost is I'm going to zoom that right up, because my fucking FO octogenarian eyes, because I'm only 34, but I feel like I'm 94, and certainly my eyes are that of a 154-year-old gentleman's. They will struggle to read that from this distance, and we're talking a mere, if I was to guess, I'd say about 5 feet, 6 feet away, about 180 odd centimetres, and I'm struggling to read it. But look, I digress. I'm here, and that's with glasses on. Fuck me. I'm here to discuss this momentous news on multiple levels, really. First of all, as a Beatles fan, hugely excited that we're finally getting this song releasing. I'm not as long-lived a Beatle fan as Stephen, and certainly other people of a more sort of older vintage, but I have been a huge fan of the Beatles my entire life, truth be told. I was aware of them when I was in primary school as a very, very young kid. Popular hits I remember vividly. A little guy I used to hang about with in primary school, probably primary 3, 4. So I'd have been about 6, 7, singing Love Me Do and Hard Day's Night. So they've been a permanent part of my life, a permanent fixture in my existence for the last 26 years, 27 years minimum. Really get into them when I was 17, 18. Proper nosedived into their back catalogue, and I've been absolutely obsessed with these 4 guys and these sort of supplementary figures, if you can call George Martin, Jeff Emerick, Neil Aspinall, Mal Evans, guys like that, supplementary figures. They're important guys. Billy Preston in the later stages, Eric Clapton coming in, of course Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones coming in, performing on You Know My Name, Look Up My Number, playing the saxophone. Fucking genius that Brian was. Tragic genius that Brian was. I'm not going to go down that slippery slope with Brian, because I don't think Brian actually killed himself. I think that was all a cover-up for a potential murder. But neither here nor there. Point I'm making is being a huge fan of the Beatles for a minimum of 20 odd years. And seriously, for like the last, I don't know, man, 18 years or something like that. 16 years. So this is momentous, man. I've watched the anthology numerous times. I've got all of the albums. I listened to the little, I don't know what you can call it, alternative editions. That's what I'm going to call them. Takes, outtakes, the bantering back and forth, and the anthology, if I can speak the King's English, because it is a King now. Remember vividly George Harrison talking about a third single and how they weren't going to take it on because he was calling it crummy or something. It was of a lower quality. And at the time, I assumed that he was actually talking about the vocals. He was talking about the whole package, the songwriting. He wasn't a fan of the song. He thought it was a bit soppy. I think I may have done George wrong here. You know that? I really do. Because there's since been, and I'm going to get into a lot of quotes here, a bit of information brought to my attention that maybe suggesting, I think it's from the estate of the late great George Harrison, that suggests that it was perhaps a more technical issue with the song that George had. The vocals weren't clear. They were from a home recording with metronomes and stuff like that in there. I don't think this one there's a metronome because I've actually just listened to the audio and I mean, yeah, I don't know what that is. It's come up, that's just something that's played through. I was listening to now and then. I then went on to a fucking Easy Life song. Now I've ended up on a Scissor song. That's my YouTube for you. It's there's not an actual metronome. I think it's an actual piano piece. He's playing the piano in it. But there's something about the actual audio. He didn't think he could clean it up at the time. And to be fair, that was the 1990s. So he probably couldn't clean it up. Lord knows. I know, I'm blanking on his name. Jeff Flynn had an enormous job on him to actually clean up Freeze a Bird. And why am I blanking on the other one? Fucking real love. I'm having a mare here. But I'm getting there. Don't worry about it. Maybe he thought it wasn't possible, but certainly now in 2023 it is possible with the use of AI. So it's fucking really exciting times, man. I remember watching in the anthology. I remember George speaking quite derisively about it's not going to happen. And now I know it's a technical issue. Now we've got through that technical issue and we're here. And I'm fucking supremely excited to see what this song is going to be like. Hear what this song is going to sound like. I'm sure there'll be a video put together for it. They did a great job with Real Love and Freeze a Bird. Really, really excited to hear if it's going to take on elements of John's home recording, if they're going to layer it like some of the fan editions we've seen, great ones that have been put on YouTube over the last few years, or whether they're going to go off and take it in a different direction. There's going to be a collaborative, posthumous collaborative effort between Macca and Harrison, and obviously Lennon, and also Richard, Ringo himself. Really intriguing to see how they're going to structure this song, how much of a job AI is going to play in the Lennon vocals. Will we hear the artificial intelligence clean-up job, or will it be completely imperceptible? Time will fucking tell. Look, we've got some quotes here. Now and then, the long-awaited final... By the way, I loved the video. It came with the actual release, the sort of press release on the Beatles official Twitter account. I thought that was fucking really cool, man. That's an insight into what we're getting with this documentary, which is a whole other thing I'm going to get into. Long-awaited final Beatles song featuring all 4 members is to be released next week, thanks to the same AI technology that was used to enhance the audio on Peter Jackson's documentary Get Back. There it was, John's voice, Paul says, crystal clear. It's quite emotional and we all play on it. It's a genuine Beatles recording. In 2023, to still be working on Beatles music and about to release a new song the public haven't heard, I think it's an exciting thing. That's intriguing because it says a song the public haven't heard, because certainly the public, the Beatles fanatics, have heard this song in its original form, with the piano, with John singing, with his sort of haunting vocals. And it's a fully fledged song, man. It's 4 minutes long or something like that. It's not an incomplete song by any means. It's fucking there. People have heard it. That may be alluding to the fact that this is a revamp. It's going to be a completely different beast that James Paul is bringing us. I like to call him James because that's his name. I know he's renowned for being Paul, but his name is James Paul McCartney. And I just like to show off my knowledge of the Beatles, you know. Former #1 Beatles trivia quizmaster fucking extraordinaire in Britain. I do know my Beatles very well. I forgot Real Love at one point there though. So clearly I'm not as well as I used to. If you pardon me. Nearly choking out here. And I'm laughing doing it because I'm putting on a stupid fucking accent. I like to do from time to time. Bobby Carlyle accent, and it's causing me to have a relapse into the chest infection that actually destroyed me for about 2-3 weeks. So I'm going to get the series head on now. I'm going to stop doing the Bobby Carlyle accent, and I'm going to actually read some of these quotes before I end up like Darth Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi, because no one wants to hear that. Tell your sister, you were right. You were right. So let's get into it, man. They did, as you can see here, they all started in 1979, I believe. That's why I put John Lennon from his 1979 form on the actual thumbnail. Started back then. He recorded these songs along with Freeze a Bird and Real Love. May have been going on longer. Certainly, I think the final recordings were done then. Put them in, I think, I don't know if it was a box or a bag or whatever packaging, and I think he wrote For Paul. And obviously, Macca, over the years, he got his hands on it. They did work together collaboratively as a band once again, early to mid-90s, thanks to the help of Jeff Lynne. Sent out 2 songs to the world. Brilliant songs, fucking love the 2 of them. Freeze a Bird is an incredible song, it's an incredible package. It's befitting of the Beatles' name. This is, I suppose, the big question for a lot of people. Should this be titled a Beatles song when it really is John Lennon on his lonesome? And then you've got posthumously them working together in the 90s, and then again they're going another Inception level deep and collaborating after the passing of George Harrison, and it's almost 3 steps away from the living, breathing Beatles being in a studio together. Is that enough to call it the Beatles? Well, for me it is, because as Macca does say, they're all there, they're all present, and they're collaborating. And let's be honest, anyone who is a fan of the Beatles will know, going back to the 1960s, sometimes they weren't in the studio together. They had their little kerfuffles. Ringo would walk out, George would walk out. Lennon had a car accident in Aberdeenshire, missed a huge part of the sort of a bank, what is he coming together? Abbey Road sessions. He wasn't present. Still Beatles songs. They may have recorded stuff afterwards, and then they put it together and it's a Beatles song. So for me it is a Beatles song, and I don't give a fuck what anyone says, and the same is certainly true of Freeze a Bird and Real Love. So yeah, I mean, it's just that's where it really started, this story. In 1979, mailed it for Paul. Paul got his hands on it. They collaborated. Obviously, technical limitations in the 90s meant that now and then couldn't happen. We've came a long, long way in the 30 odd years since, and we're now at a point where we can clean this up. And we've got the AI doing the work of Jeff Lynne now, and hopefully it's very fucking impressive. And I'm actually hoping that Mac has got a bit of AI work on his voice as well, because as much as I love his voice now, and it's different and he's older, you do require a sort of more youthful thing. If you're going to do the Beatles song, the vibe justice, you do need to have a more youthful McCartney voice. So I'd like to see it doing some work on that. But what I fucking digress, I'm talking. We've got quotes from Ringo. It was the closest we'll ever come to having him in the back room, the back rooms. So it was very emotional for all of us. It was like John was there, it's far out. Heard this said before. When Mac also went to tour, and he had John singing his little bits from I'm fucking blanking on it. Why am I blanking on everything tonight, man? I've got a feeling when he was singing his little bits from I've Got a Feeling. I've got a cat meowing outside. I have to stress, cats get fucking dementia. It's on its last legs. It's meowing outside. My dog's up at the door, whining to get to the cat. I'm trying to speak and do a show. And it's fucking chaotic. And then I'm trying to fucking remember things and say it all live. So that's my excuse. I've got a feeling. He spoke about the presence of Lennon being there at these concerts and how it was like the gang getting back together again. So it's nice to see that they are in their later years. These guys are in their 80s now. They're having these moments. And it's just, again, it just shows you the significance of the Beatles as a band, as a pop cultural, ever-present sort of icon. They're always there. Multiple generations now have loved and experienced this music. There's a real demand for Beatles content, even in 2023, which is why the Get Back stuff was fucking so popular, and it was such an interesting insight into their process in making music. And I remember me and Stephen talking at the time about how this could be the last ever Beatles piece of sort of content, if you like, that we would ever be able to watch and enjoy afresh. And now we get this. We get an all-new Beatles release and an all-new documentary to get our teeth into. So I'm just living this, man. I'm appreciating it as a fan because I know that this moment isn't going to come again. This could be the last. Well, it's going to be the last new sort of release, but it could be the last ever Beatles-related thing with all of their input, if you like, in some way or another, that we get to enjoy. I know there'll be remasters. I know there'll be fucking clean-ups of live albums from 1966 or something. I don't even know if they were two in the 66, I think they were. There'll be shit like that coming out time immemorial, but this is special, man. You've got to savour moments of this, and I really am fucking looking forward to next week. Now, to hear this for the first time, he spoke in Radio 4 back in the fucking year there in June. This is when we spoke about it. I did say the summer. He's talking about the AI thing. I've done that, I've covered that. I'm not going to linger on that too long. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's all part of the mixing experience, really. Using AI to clean up the audio. This is something that would have been done manually back in the day anyway. Just really cleaning everything up, giving it a new lick of paint, polishing it, making it as, I don't know, accessible as possible to people's ears. Nothing wrong with AI doing that job. Certainly on a track like this where it's 40 odd years, 50 odd years old. And you have to really go in and make it pop as much as possible with all the additional tracks we've got. The other thing that's just come into my fucking head here is I'm speaking about Macca doing a youthful voice and maybe utilising the AI for it. Might not even have to do that. Despite me McCartney's vocals from way back in the 1990s when they were working on it that they are using here. They've laid down tracks 30 odd years ago. We know that because George is involved in this recording. Maybe that we're using 30-year-old audio tracks from Paul McCartney when his voice was unbelievable at that point still, and isn't as old and maybe is not as strong as it is today, obviously, where it's a little bit weaker. He's in his 80s. Maybe that's possible. Maybe they're using older vocal recordings and maybe he's just laying down instrumental stuff, because I did see he laid down the bass. As you can see here, he's sitting with his Hofner bass. A couple other quotes I found intriguing. I think it was a couple anyway. Yeah, it was this one here about the whole Paul McCartney kerfuffle. I keep saying kerfuffle with George. George didn't like it. This is talking about Now and Then back in the day. Didn't have a very good title. It needed a bit of reworking, but it had a beautiful verse and it had John singing it. George didn't like it. The Beatles being a democracy, we didn't do it. Fucking rubbish is what Harrison called Lennon's demo. Lemmel's Den, I was going to say there. This is just Harrison back in the day being his sort of abrasive self, man. He had a way about him. He was a little bit, bristly at times. And he'd say things like this. I don't think he was meaning the lyrics. I don't think he was meaning the singing. I think as you get into here, he was meaning the technical issues, because as you can see here, Olivia Harrison has said in a statement back in 1995, after several days in the studio working on the track, George felt the technical issues with the demo were insurmountable and concluded that it was not possible to finish the track to a high enough standard. If he were here today, Danny and I know he would have wholeheartedly joined Paul and Ringo in completing the recording of Now and Then. So, I mean, that's nice to see that. I mean, I always assumed he just hated the fucking song. I'm not going to lie. This is something me and Stephen have spoken about a lot. He just hated the fucking song. He wasn't having the song. He didn't like the song. He thought it was rubbish. He says it himself. It's fucking rubbish. There. But it's nice to see Olivia coming in and saying it was actually giving us an insight into maybe George's mindset. Maybe he softened over the years. I don't know. Maybe this was always his fucking mindset on the song. That it was actually technical issues. It technically wasn't possible to get the vocals from that Lennon track up to standard. And even, I mean, I love Freezer Bird and I love Real Love, but you can tell that the vocals aren't quite as good as the backing vocals and the other stuff that's been laid down to make it a more polished, wholesome song. So I get that argument. I do. I understand it. And look, the Beatles were always about putting out tip-top content. The best stuff they could possibly put out. The band worked blood, sweat and tears for fucking I want to say at least 13 years. I think it started in the mid to late 50s. They were floating about in some way or the other. Quarrymen into the Silver Beatles, Long John the Silver Beatles, before they became the actual Beatles. And that input, even from the early days when they were 16 and 15 writing songs, was always of an unbelievable calibre. So you don't want to sully that by releasing something just for the sake of it. That's not the Beatles, that's not the way they work. Everything has to be fucking excellent before it hits the ears of the plebs out in the street. So I understand George's take on that. And it's nice to see it was maybe a technical issue, and he would have been on board if he was alive and kicking here and now. And also she goes on to say, no, that's not him, or her, it's Sean Lennon. He comes in with a final sort of quote. This was from the actual little clip. I love this clip. I'm disappointed Julian's not on it. Hopefully he has a part to play in the documentary at some point. It was incredibly touching to hear them working together after all the years that Dad had been gone. It's the last song my dad, Paul, George and Ringo got to make together. It's like a time capsule and it all feels very meant to be. Look, man, massive fucking news. As you can see here, Beatles Twitter account just fucking hitting us with an avalanche of news and content and everything. New expanded mixed editions of the Red and Blue albums to be released on the 10th of the 11th. That's the 10th of November. Is it the 10th of November? Yeah, 10th of November. Of course it is. We're already by the 11th of fucking October, John. Come on, son. I hate it when they do that stupid Americanised fucking bollocks with the calendars and the sort of dates. I hate that shit. That's not the way we roll. Actually, that is the proper British way of doing it. I'm fucking talking shite. It's 10th of November. It's not the 11th of September. That shite. 11-9. Am I tripping here? Yeah, that's the right British way. That's the right way to do it. That's the correct way to do it. Everybody else can fuck off. They go on to say in these releases, Beatles song, written song, we know about this. I've just spoke about this for quite a bit. 4 decades later, they're back collabing once again. It's going to release on November 2nd, worldwide, 2 p.m. GMT. I seen something about the 3rd of November. I think it may be a double A side it's releasing. Pretty sure it was, I don't know what it was. Maybe Love Me Do, I'm pretty sure it was. Obviously, this documentary is really intriguing as well. What a 12-minute documentary film will debut on November 1st on the Beatles YouTube channel. So that's going to be intriguing to see the insight of Paul, also of Ringo, I presume of all the usual faces. And also Sean, it'd be great to see Peter Jackson. Fucking just seeing the process, man. Seeing how they pieced this together. I can't get enough of this shit, man. I love the documentaries. I want to see more and more of this. I'm crying out for some lost footage from 1965, 66, 67 to crop up, and for Peter to get his hands on it and just clean it up and give us more of the Beatles working together in the studio, bouncing off of each other. I'm happy to just keep watching this stuff for the rest of my days, really. So just keep injecting it into my fucking veins. This is like crack to me. So this 12-minute documentary coming out in November 1st, I'm really excited for that, man, just to see what it's going to entail. And then also we get the song releasing the next day. This I'm not so, I mean it's alright, I'm not so infused with the Red and Blue albums. I mean I've listened to that, I've been there, I've done it. Also they're cleaned up, it's going to be intriguing. They may super exceed actually in some ways the number 1 album will get released, and I think recently get remastered as well. It's always nice to see them cleaning up the early songs, but I want to see them systematically going through and doing that anyway, bit by bit. But look, man, exciting fucking times. That's really it. Exciting times to be a Beatles fan, exciting times to any music fan really to hear a new output from the best band ever, really. And I'll make no fucking apologies of saying that. They are the best band that ever lived. They remain, despite the fact 2 of them are no longer with us, the best band on the planet. Nothing can compete with them. Nothing will ever compete with them. And I just hope this song goes to fucking number 1. I know it won't, because it'll be some bullshit song by fucking, I don't know. Just take your pick, really. I can't even think of anybody off the top of my head. Ed Sheeran. It'll probably go in there. I know Ed's get a song out just now. It's not his best. I've heard it. It's not his standard. I don't mind Ed Sheeran, I'm not going to lie. I think he's a great songwriter. He's a cool guy. I do quite like him, but he's fucking generic, isn't he? Maybe he'll beat the Beatles when they put this out. Obviously, we've seen they put it out. Michael Jackson, I think, trumped him with some fucking, I think it was their song or some bollocks like that. That was never his best either. That was a crap song. Shite album, a shite video. I remember it at the time, everyone losing their mind. He was clinging onto a tree. Gives a fuck. These fucking Beatles are out here. Come on. So it's really exciting times, man. I'm just really intrigued to see how they structure it. That's the first thing I'm going to listen to. How's this going to be structured on a musical level? How's it going to sound? How much of it's going to be that sort of track it was laid down by Lennon himself 40 odd years ago? How much changes, how much deviations they're going to make, how much AI is going to play a part, and just what it's going to sound like, man. We've never heard this. We have never heard this complete package. We've never even had an inkling of what the sessions were like in 1993, 94, whenever it was, when they did the anthology. We've not heard the input from George, from obviously Paul and Ringo. I don't know if they've changed their inputs in the new sort of sessions I presume they've done. We've never heard this. It's brand new, and that's what's fucking exciting, man. So I'm counting down the days to next week. Cannot wait to the 2nd of November to hear this fucking song. I've been buzzing about it for months now, let's be honest, since it was announced, I think, in June. And again, it just shows you the positive impact technology can have, even on historic content. And it's why I've got trepidations about AI, but I'm also embracing it, because it's helping people on a health level. It's helping on a sort of efficiency level. It's helping on a musicality level to clean up tracks and give us brand new Beatles songs. So I'm fucking embracing it. I'm looking forward to it, man. But moving on. Moving on to the next topic. I'm going to cut out the final talk here. I was going to speak about Alan because it's late as fuck here. And I'm really trying to push this show into as short a sort of duration as possible. I was going to speak about Alan Wake 2. I forgot Alan Wake 2 was coming out. Me and Stephen spoke about this though. I remember back in the day. It is coming out. Reviews are unbelievable. Incredible. I've been on Metacritic. I'm praising it, man. I loved the first game. Thought it was outstanding. Really atmospheric, brilliant horror game with some incredible storytelling elements. It felt like a film. It felt really immersive, and the music was unbelievable. Just a really good combination of different elements working in a fun, brilliant, if not linear, little video game. And super exciting to see that. I'm buzzing to see what that's going to be like. I'm going to get my hands on that if I can. I don't know how I'll do it. Probably digital, because that's the only way I can consume content now. And yeah, that's me done my bit in Alan Wake 2. Fucking delighted to see an original sort of idea potentially getting high reviews. It's been a good year for video games. Very good year. We've got Spider-Man 2 out just now as well, so it's doing rare business, the video game industry. Fair play to it. Five Nights at Freddy's though. Speaking about video games and a not so raring adaptation, it seems, of a video game, Five Nights at Freddy's. I spoke about this last week. It's been clipped up. I see it's went out today. Speaking back then about presume it was an MCU. I want to say it was an MCU writer. Was it an MCU writer? I think it was Scargo or something. Speaking about the raw potential of Five Nights at Freddy's as a franchise, and how Hollywood doesn't realise what it's got in its hands. Blumhouse has years of storytelling potential, years and years of mythos and books and everything to mine out of. Well, that's all well and good, man, if you produce a first sort of excellent first film. But if what you've output in the initial release is fucking bang average at best, or outright shit at worst, then you ain't getting a franchise, man. You have to produce the goods on the initial release. I'm thinking back to the Mummy film from Universal with Tom Cruise, and I always forget her name, Sofia Boutella, I think her name was. It was a fucking shit show of a movie. God awful. And it killed the whole monster universe that Universal had planned. Stone dead after one release. Blumhouse don't tend to give a shit though. They tend to release films and they'll have monster hits, then they'll have a real shit show release, and they just keep going with it no matter what. So I mean, there's a potential here that they genuinely don't give a shit and just crack on with a franchise anyway. And this is just critics that are reviewing this just now. So there's a high possibility that they are not the best voice to be listening to in regards to this kind of film. Because this is not the kind of film that your stuffy little film snob critiques love. They love the sort of deep human condition drama stories, the Oscar baiting stories, 3.5 hour Scorsese films. That's what they love, and look, I love them as well. Horror films, maybe not so much. And look, I'm not saying they're wrong, because I've not seen this film yet. And to be fair, I've only watched streamers playing the game, and even then it looked like a fairly superficial kind of video game. You're sitting in a control room and you're trying to keep these animatronic fucking killer toys out of the room. That's a great idea for a video game, and jump scares and watching it on a stream on Twitch for a Hollywood movie. I did say this last week, I'm pretty sure I did. I hope I'm not contradicting myself. I did say it's got potential, but as you can see, look, not everyone thinks it's an absolute shit show. I'm going to go through some of the reviews here. Wow, Globe and Mail, look at that name. How does one read that name? Let's try. Top critic, he is not liked the film. And this is Radian Simon Pillai. Simon Pillai, I think I've done a reasonable job there. He said this Five Nights is at its best when it's leaning into the jokes, which doesn't happen enough. That's concerning, Radian, because it's a fucking horror film, mate. And I know dark humour and comedy is a thing, but a horror film's success shouldn't be leaning or relying on jokes. That's not really how a horror film works. It relies on gore and keep you on your toes and frightening you if you're of that persuasion. I've not been frightened by a horror film since I was about 6 years old. I'm still searching. I'm on a fucking pilgrimage to find a horror film that truly scares me, and I'm yet to find one in like the last 28 years. But a horror film shouldn't be relying on jokes. I mean, you've watched it, so I suppose you'll know what you're talking about. Maybe the jokes are done really well and you're yearning for more, but a horror film shouldn't be leaning on jokes for success. It should be leaning on visceral blood and guts and jump scares, if that's the kind of film it is, and it really should be. It should be like a siege horror slasher film. I digress, that's his thoughts and he's entitled to them. Matt Donato, Inverse, top critic, liked the film. Rated at 7 out of 10. This is a sort of very much the outlier in a sea of utter negativity. It might not be the scariest or most full throttle horror film of the year, but it does translate Five Nights at Freddy's into a family-friendly-ish, and I'm going to speak about this in a moment, family-friendly-ish, fucking hell, I'm speaking about this in a moment, horror tale that sets the nostalgic innocence of childhood ablaze. Are we really wanting this to be family-friendly, man? I'm going to speak about this right now. I'll come back to the reviews. They've stuck to a PG-13. I assumed this was a 15. I don't know if that's the same thing in the United Kingdom. PG-13 is the equivalent of a 15 here. I don't think it is. Because 13 is not 15, and 13 is 13-year-olds can be admitted with the parental guidance, with a sort of an adult. That's not 15. 15 is one step down from an 18, which is meaning there's mature themes and there's potential violence and things that are not suitable for a minor, not like a child or a teenager, but an actual minor. And I deem 13-year-olds as minors. I deem 15-year-olds as minors as well. But they're a little bit more mature and they can watch violent horror films and not want to go out and fucking stab someone in the jugular, which is what maybe a 13-year-old, if they're of that persuasion, may want to do, or younger certainly. Normalising violence, desensitising them is what I'm saying. PG-13, I don't think that's a suitable rating for Five Nights at Freddy's. I think you go full batshit crazy into it, man. You make it violent, you make it scary as hell, you've got mature themes, you double down on it. You've got these big fluffy toys, animatronic toys. They're meant for kids, but they're evil, they're sadistic. They're chasing you about this fucking factory, want to dismember you. That's the way you go with these films. You make it dark, you make it gritty. And it really disappoints me that the director, Emma Tammy, has come out and says not only will the PG-13 tone be a perfect fit for the film, but there are no plans to even make an R-rated version, director's cut in the future. I think that's incredibly disappointing. Here's a quote here. I would say not expect an R-rated version on this one. We're really happy with how the PG-13 tone landed. It felt like the right fit for this particular film. We're sticking by it. The last time I heard that was the New Mutants, when we had a horror Marvel sort of thing. It became a Marvel thing when obviously Fox was bought out by Disney. I remember the director at the time saying It's going to be PG-13. We can fit the tone into that genre or into that rating. We can make it work. It doesn't have to be a 15 or an R-rated or an 18. We can make it work. We can make it as scary as possible whilst ticking all the demographic boxes. And I called bullshit at that time, and I'm calling bullshit here. We have to get away, and this is Blumhouse, man. They should fucking know better. We have to get away from this multi-demographic fucking box for every single film release. Not every single film should be watched by a 2-year-old or a 90-year-old, and they're all in the one room. I know it makes more money if you can make it as wide-reaching as possible, and you increase the chances of a box office hit if you make it as wide-reaching and as accessible as possible. But you're neutering the very essence of horror films and indeed of other genres when you try to force it into a multi-demographic release and make it PG-13 like Marvel and Disney have been doing for the last 10 years. It's fine with superhero films because they by their very essence are multi-demographic popcorn flicks. A horror film, no man. A horror film should never be PG-13. Never. And I'm maybe contradicting myself here because some of my favourite horror films of the last 10 years maybe PG-13. So I'm going to go ahead and search one up. Hush, right off the top of my head. Hush the film. What was that? Was that a PG-13? Because I really liked that. Someone gets slashed in the throat in that film. That's a 15. Mike Flanagan. That's a 15. What about Green Room? What was that? That was an 18. You see the sort of theme starting to develop here. You've got really good horror films, 15, 18. They're not giving a shit about kids watching it. They're not giving a shit about making money as the sole sort of driving factor behind the film. They're caring about the actual artistic content. They're caring about the story they're telling. They're caring about delivering a really visceral horror experience. These films work and they're catered to adults. That's what horror should be catered to. You shouldn't be wanting to watch a fucking horror film if you're 13, 12, 11. I did because I was a fucking psychopath when I was younger. I was watching RoboCop when I was like 6. I was watching Freddy Krueger when I was like 6. I was watching Tim Curry's fucking Pennywise when I was like 6, 7. Haunted me. I was watching it. But kids now, man, they're soft as shit. They shouldn't be watching it anyway. So stop fucking neutering film for these younger generations. Give us good horror films. This horror film would have succeeded if they went with a higher rating, a more mature rating, and gave us sheer balls to the wall violence. This is what you need, man. We've not got enough great horror franchises just now. There's a dearth of it. This had potential. It disappoints me, man. Frank Sheck, Hollywood Reporter, the ultimate result was a snooze. Benjamin Lee, Five Nights at Freddy's is somehow a slog to get through and will be promptly forgotten by more. That's disappointing, man. William Bibiani, a guy I respect tremendously, he's been on the Schmodown back in the day and probably still is. Unbelievable knowledge in film. Respect his opinion. When the Banana Splits movie got there first and did it slightly better, you're in trouble. I remember that film. I reacted to the trailer for the Banana Splits film and I thought Five Nights at Freddy's. I'm going to search it up. What rating was that? What rating was that? It was a fucking 18. I mean, it's not great, 5.1 out of 10, but it's doing better than Rotten Tomatoes, that's for sure. You've got to double down, man, on the violence and on the mature themes when you're doing horror. PG-13 is not an acceptable rating for a horror film. It will never be an acceptable rating. I grew up with 18s and 15s. I grew up with that shit. My generation and me are fine, as far as I'm aware. Stop fucking wrapping people up in cotton wool. We're going to jump to Graham Tuckett of stuff.co.New Zealand, I presume. Five Nights at Freddy's is funny, has a couple of terrific jump scares and a surprisingly involving script. It's not all negative. I've got a couple of voices sort of preaching positivity. Josh Corngut sounds like one of the writers we had on our website back in the day. Some of the names, man. Valentine, Fingerhuts. No offence to these people, they wrote good reviews, but fucking hell, those names were fake. This fun Blumhouse adaptation of the cult Five Nights at Freddy's franchise treats its source material with irreverence, but to the point of overcomplication. So all in all, man, the general sort of consensus seems to be that it's kind of boring it's trying to be funny, but it's not funny enough, and perhaps it doesn't lean on the funniness enough at that. But the biggest issue for me, I think, is the fact this movie is rated wrong. It's a PG-13. You've neutered it right out of the fucking gate. It can't possibly succeed because you're trying to cater to younger generations, younger eyeballs, if you like, as opposed to just saying, we've got a horror movie here, it's got franchise potential, it can be violent, it can be gritty, let's make it for adults. We won't make as much money in the short term, but these kids will ultimately grow up and watch this franchise, and maybe sort of residual earnings will make up for it when we've got a franchise that's 5, 6, 7 fucking movies long and it's raking the money in. You've got to think long term. Long term, man, PG-13 for this franchise, I think, is a mistake. And it's paying big time for it now because the reviews are shocking. 33% Rotten Tomatoes is horror fuel for a film. Through 40 reviews, it's going to get worse. This can get down to 20. Believe me. I'm moving on though. Fuck it. Final topic of the show. Warner Brothers to delay more 2024 movies. Me and Stephen have spoke about this a fair amount. We spoke about the real lack of movie trailers, the lack of news across the board in the last few weeks, and indeed probably months. Spoke about the strikes over in the United States, the actors' strikes, the writers' producers' strikes, and how that's impacting on the industry and how it's impacting on films which are in production purgatory, which can't get off the ground because there's no one there to act in them, because we're 100 days plus into a strike, and how that's ultimately impacting on films that are already shot, in the can and ready to release. Walsh studios be forcing them out because they're burning a hole in their pocket, because ultimately when films are made, they're made with other people's money. Banks, financial institutions invest money into the studios, who then make the film. They have to pay them back. They have to make profit. The longer they sit in a film, they have to promote it with new dates. It burns more money. The chances of making a profit reduces. These films are being sat on. Did they release them? Did they push them back to 2024? We've spoke about this, because there ain't going to be any films out next year the way it's gone. There ain't going to be. They're not making films because no one's there to fucking make them. And now it's confirmed, really. Warner Brothers are, they're reportedly considering delaying Beetlejuice 2 and more 2024 films. This won't just be a Warner Brothers issue. This will be a widespread issue for all of the studios. It's ongoing, man. You're going to have a real issue. This is like COVID, but different. Because at least with COVID, we were making films. Albeit it took fucking forever to make them because of all the stupid fucking guidelines and having to wear masks when you're 20 feet apart. Now, it's due to strikes and issues with AI again. I'm trying to use people's likeness, sign them into forever contracts where they can pop up in the background of films ad infinitum. And just the moral sort of stance of that, where do you lie legally when you sign an extra to a contract and then they're forever locked in, being used as a fucking husk in a film with no emotion, no performance? I'm firmly behind these people that are striking. They have to get this written in sand now before the shit hits the fan with AI, and it's too fucking late. You need to protect the rights of the sort of actors, the industry figures, because AI is going to take over, man, and people are going to lose their jobs, and we're walking into an economic fucking disaster. I'm embracing it, but I'm also terrified of it, as I said before. And this is an issue for studios, and as you can see here, I don't know who it was Eric Wold. What was it? B. Riley senior media analyst Eric Wold told the outlet there will be a number of 2024 titles that move into 2025 and beyond. See, to be fair, we've got a load of great films coming out this year anyway, coming out at the end of this year, the likes of Wonka and stuff like that. We have got a lot of decent films coming out, and there's more than enough to come out next year that can tide over till we potentially get other films in production, post-production, and sort of cover that gap, if you like, what that was. So it's not that big an issue. I'm maybe being melodramatic, but yeah, studios are holding back, not talking about it, to avoid showing their weak hand during negotiations. But people are waiting for it. They are. It's coming. Slightly sad if they delay this. This is one I'm intrigued by. I've not even get it up. That's how much I'm fucking intrigued by it. This is one I'm intrigued by, I have to say. Beetlejuice 2. And again, I'm being a contradictory fucker because I've spoke a lot about films from this time period, 1980s, early 90s, being very much of their era, and how you can't recapture that sort of stardust that made these movies special in the modern era. You've just not got the same calibre of writers in the modern era. You've not got the same audiences who are receptive to these kind of films in the modern era. Attention spans are lower. People are more cynical, and they just don't seem to enjoy the same kind of content that people enjoyed 30 years ago, which is normal because they're different. They're a different generation. But the obvious issue with that is that you've got films like Terminator coming out, are being made poorer, and they just don't work. Because what made those movies special was the practical effects, the way they were shot, good storytelling, but people being open to it. We're almost living in the Terminator age now. We've got fucking... we feel like we're 2 steps away from fucking androids walking about. Obviously, things like Total Recall being remade, Robocop being remade, and it just doesn't work. Talks of rebooting Back to the Future, it wouldn't work. They just can't capture the magic. But this one feels like it's potentially different. And the reason it feels like it's potentially different is, one, it's got Michael Keaton, and the guy's unbelievable. 2, it's got Winona Ryder, and she's just always been a fucking eccentric. It will fit into a film and make it work. But most importantly, it's got Jenna Ortega. And Jenna has made Wednesday work in the modern era. Much like your own actress, whose name I'm going to forget, and I always forget, Christina Ricci, made it work in the 90s, and I'm sure there was actors before that playing Wednesday Addams in the fucking 60s, 70s ones. She's a sort of... I don't know, the Trump... I'm not a poker player, but she's a sort of ace in the hole in this film's sort of sleeve. I can't think of an analogy. I can't think of how ace in the hole works. She's ace in the hole for this film. She could potentially make this film succeed just by her presence. I think she's really interesting as an actor. She's weird. She'll work with this. She can make it pop like she made Wednesday pop before her. But really, you need to have a rationale for making this film. There has to be an interesting story there. A real justification for continuing the story. Because it's such a brilliant, singular, wacky, unique story that came out back in the day. I'm pretty sure it was Tim Burton. It was Tim Burton. And this one's been directed by Tim Burton. I remember hearing about it when I was a kid. I remember watching it. I was fucking obsessed with it. So funny. Even now, I talk about the shrunken head waiting line scene. All these years later. It was just a brilliant film, but with it being a brilliant film, that also gives you the issue of why we continue in it. And I'm sure there's a rationale for Tim Burton. And I'm sure there's a rationale for casting Jenna Ortega as a daughter. I think she's a daughter. I'm pretty sure she's a daughter of Winona Ryder's character in this film. This is a quote from who? It's from Tim Burton. Funnily enough, who'd have funked it? A very long quote. Honestly, I don't really know, because I'm really not that good at talking or speaking or trying to sell something, so to speak. Is this even about... is this even about fucking Beetlejuice? It is. He gets to it at the end. It's a very strange journey that I can't quite explain. That's why it's hard for me to watch the movies afterwards, because I still feel the emotional whatever of it. I don't get a release from that, but I do enjoy all the people I've worked with. On this last one, Beetlejuice 2, I really enjoyed it. I tried to strip everything and go back to the basics of working with good people and actors and puppets, and it was kind of like getting back to why I liked making movies. I think that's intriguing what he says there. The puppets, getting back to basics, that's what you need to do when you're making movies that are inspired by that era. You can't have the CG, you can't have the green, the blue screens, you can't have the volume. Fuck all that. You have to go back to practical, on set, on location shots, and make it as authentically as possible to what they did back in the day. That's how you will make it pop. If it's got that same vibe, that same feel, you've got inspired performances from the crew and the cast, everything, then it's got a real chance to succeed. If you're just making a banal, beige, fucking hollow, shitty remake, quasi-sequel, then it's doomed to fail. He says it's 99% done. The strike did stop it. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be delayed then. I mean, it's not been announced, but it's going to be delayed. It's not even finished. They're 99% done. I don't think they've even finished the shoot. So, or maybe they have. Maybe it's post-production, I don't know. it was always going to happen, man. We were always going to get movies delayed. It was always going to happen. 2024, it was inevitable. You've got strikes that have been going on for a long time. The studios are digging their feet in. The actors are digging their feet in. We've got an impasse. It's 100 days plus. We had an impasse with writers and producers, I think, as well, for a long, long time. And that inevitably leads to upheaval, to obstacles in the way of films being made. And it's important that these people stand up, because it's an important issue. AI, how it impacts on performers, on actors, on human beings, is an important thing to make a stand on right now before the floodgates open up. Protect the rights, at least for the short to medium term anyway. Fuck knows what's happening in the long term. So I firmly stand behind the strikes and what these people are trying to achieve. I'm a fucking socialist at heart, so I want to see the workers getting their just desserts. Fuck the studios, fuck the system, fuck the establishment. You tell I'm a Rage Against the Machine fan. I am, love it. And if the consequences delayed films, then so be it. But look, man, I'm going to round the show up on that note. What is your thoughts on the topics I touched upon? What do you make about the Beatles releasing their final ever song next week, the 2nd of November? 1st of November, we get a 12-minute documentary featuring the likes of Peter Jackson, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, Danny Harrison, I presume, Sean Lennon. Hopefully Julian's in there as well. I always forget George Martin's fucking son, Giles Martin. I was frantically trying to juggle his name in my head when I was talking about this topic earlier, and I'm like, just stay away from it. I was talking about him remaking all the earlier stuff, and I just shat the pants, if you like, and thought, fuck it, don't even try and say Giles Martin. I'll have a stroke if I say it. It'll feature Giles, I'm sure. I'm sure he's absolutely involved in this process. Really looking forward to it. What's your thoughts on it? What's your thoughts on hearing that final ever Beatles song? Tinged with sadness, but also unbelievably exciting, man. Share your thoughts down below about that. Share your thoughts down below about Five Nights at Freddy's just getting obliterated by the critics on Rotten Tomatoes and in general. 33% through 40 odd reviews as we stand just now. It's only going to get worse by the looks of it. Is the franchise dead before it even starts? Intrigued to hear your thoughts. What's your thoughts on Warner Brothers seemingly about to delay Beetlejuice 2 and a whole host of other 2020 movies, I should say, back to 2024? Thoughts on the strikes, are they right? Share your thoughts down below about that. Alan Wake 2, if you've got anything to say about that. I spoke about that briefly as well. Are you excited for that? Share your thoughts down below about that. Anything at all you feel compelled to share, put it down below in the comment section. Like the video if you've enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to get notifications straight to your eyeballs. Same thing over on Twitch, follow button, notifications button over there. Like it on Spotify, podcasts, follow us over there if you want to hear it in audio. All that's left to be said is until the next time I'm done. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.